So, hi all. Today we have a special session to discuss Google Summer of Code and answer whatever questions, and pretty much any other topic in the community, if you wish. So we have several people on the call, and if you want to ask any questions, just unmute yourself, and we can start from there. I'll share the link to meeting notes just in case we need them.
Hey, good morning, Oleg, Brad. How are you guys?
Very good, thank you. How about you?
Awesome. Doing well. Yeah, I just had a quick question about, I guess, Google Summer of Code. And I guess this is kind of for Oleg, but also for Brad as well. I was wondering, because I noticed, Oleg specifically, you've had, a lot of experience with Google Summer of Code and, open source as well. I was just wondering, what's sort of the, I guess, what's sort of the optimal, kind of the optimal result, I guess, for participants, whether it be for mentors or contributors or the organization as well for Google Summer of Code specifically.
So you ask about expected results, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, Google Summer of Code is a mentorship and outreach program. Mm-hmm. So the main objective for this program is learning together, because Google Summer of Code offers learning opportunities not only to mentees but also to mentors, just different areas, different skill sets. And working together, having fun, learning something is the main objective.
Awesome.
Secondary objective is delivering something. Google Summer of Code is really about code, and we expect mentees to participate in the community and work with the community to deliver some projects. And of course, it's a really nice thing to do. In many projects, I see, so there are two approaches basically to GSOC in organizations. The first approach, which I do not really like, is having a student working in a fully isolated environment to have a kind of side project within the organization, maybe some prototype. It's one of the approaches. Another approach is to have a mentee working on something within the main community roadmap, maybe still isolated to some extent, but that has high demand from users and high value to the community. So it's not like a sandbox project which just happens and then it gets tabled without any result. Right. I prefer to see different approach when students really engage in the community, work on something valuable, whether it gets delivered or not, whether it's a prototype or ready to production, at least being involved in some area that is really important for the community. And
awesome.
Personally, I think that all projects should be like that, because again, for community, it's a learning experience, it's community bonding, and if it works, it's perfect. If you also ship something, it's also awesome.
Yeah.
I have seen many great projects done, for example, in Jenkins. I can provide a few examples if you wish. But yeah, even if the final bits are not shipped, it's still great for the community to have such projects.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. I guess just a quick follow-up then. I guess keeping that in mind, so then sort of other than technical skills, solid technical skills, I guess what are some things that you consider to be I guess an important trait for being a part of an open source community, or being a contributor?
Mm-hmm.
I can answer that one.
Okay.
Well. Yeah. So yeah, the great thing about the open source community is that everyone's welcome. So there's so many ways that you can contribute, whether it's non-technical contributions to technical contributions. yeah, it's really inviting, and especially the Keptn one as well. You'll find that after GSOC, you'll find yourself hanging out there as well, so you can meet some really good friends. You know, a great place to start is documentation. A lot of folks start documentation, and they sort of a good place is to understand what the tool actually does and just try using it yourself, and then you can see the areas of interest that you're into, and then just all you need to do is like there's like a saying that they use is the only way to get involved is to get involved. So just jump in the Slack channel, say hello, say a little bit about yourself, and then everyone will swarm and just want to help you. And it's the power of the community is amazing. So yeah, you can contribute in so many different ways, and you don't have to be a rockstar coder like that. That's what we're here to help you with that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome. It's going to be fun.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, there are questions in the background from Omar about how to get started, etc. So that we answered in the chat. Any other questions you would like to bring up? Then maybe it makes sense to take a look at the timeline, just so that everyone is on the same page.
Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, just quick update on the timeline. The applications for students, for contributors are now open, and they will be open until April 19th. So this is the application deadline. So now you can go to the GSOC website and submit your application as a draft or as a final application. But yeah, this is the formal process. Informal process followed in most of the organizations, that once you have a proposal draft, it's better to submit it in project charts like in Keptn Slack, so that you can have a discussion happening there, and you can have a few cycles of feedback. The worst thing you can do at this stage is just submit your final proposal on April 19th without getting any feedback. Because in this case, you don't really use an opportunity to discuss your idea with mentors, and without active discussion, without community engagement, usually these projects do not get accepted. Unless there is exceptional basis. So my recommendation that in the coming 2 weeks, use all the opportunities to discuss the projects. If you have a project draft, then submit it to the Slack, start the discussion in public. If you don't have a project proposal draft yet, maybe it's something to work on. Even if it's not complete, even if it's not perfect, just trying to narrow down what you would be working on, reviewing the project, deliverables, etc. It would be a good start. And if there is something unclear within the project idea, then again, it's time to get it clarified with potential mentors. And yeah, we have just 2 weeks left. It's not that much time, so please use this time and engage with the community if you haven't done it yet. And if you have already discussed it, we had a lot of discussions. We had some prototypes shown by potential contributors. Please convert them to proposals so that we can start looking into that. Okay. So this is what is going on now. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, actually, talking about the timestamps, what's the procedure like? Is this like to contribute in whole 3 months, or is it like you can take some leave in between the work, in between the works, and we can extend the workload, maybe 5 months. Is it like something which makes sense?
Okay, there is a strict timeline for Google Summer of Code.
Okay.
This year they made some adjustments to accommodate projects. So now you have an opportunity to have short-term project, which is 170 hours, and full project, which is 340 hours. These projects happen within this time frame. So you can see that this year you can take extended timeline. It's something you can discuss with your potential mentors in application, because it would require availability not only of the student but also of mentors for these extended timelines. But it's possible these days. Ultimately, based on your capacity, you need to decide what is the timeline for the project and how much time you're ready to dedicate.
Yeah, sounds good.
So it's actually the first year when extended timelines were introduced in Google Summer of Code. Before that, it was strict. So until the beginning of September, everyone was working in this time frame. But this year they introduced a few additional options just to accommodate with more flexibility.
Yes, exactly.
It's up to you to choose what options you would like to. But if you really want to have extended period, then it's something you need to discuss with potential mentors, because they need to also commit to longer time frame, or we need to find some options. Usually it's possible, because actually summer is the most challenging time because of vacation periods, daycare being off, etc., etc. But yeah, still it's better to discuss. Yeah. Does it answer your question?
Yes, yes. That's makes sense to me. But it all depends on the mentors actually, how the commitment they have, and how you are going to make your project in the next level.
Yeah. So this is something we will need to review. So once the application is over, there will be almost 1 month for mentors and our admins to form mentorship teams and to ensure that we can provide this mentorship capacity. So there will be some time to close the gaps if they need it. We usually tend to have 3 mentors at least per project, because it's normal that 1 or 2 mentors have to change their priorities, have to step down from GSOC. Life happens. And we want to have projects to be robust, so that one mentor stepping down, etc., doesn't lead to the project being in limbo. And this one thing for admins to actually take care of.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's still tricky. Every year there are surprises. Sometimes, one thing I saw that in 2020 for one project we had 6 mentors, but it was 2020 and 5 of these mentors had to step down over the first 2 months of the project. So this was quite a ride. But still the project was successful because we had a plan B, we had organ means engaging. Yeah, sometimes it's not straightforward, and be ready to that, because it's community. So even if mentors do some kind of commitment, of course, some things may go wrong. Same for students. So sometimes, if you get ill, it also happens, and it's not like you sign your GSOC contract with blood. So sometimes it's fine even to stop the project. Sometimes it's fine to make a break if needed, and we ask all teams to be flexible. But in your application, if you have an expectation about your commitments, it's really important to set it up front. So for example, if you want to have a full-time project, so say that you are going to work full-time, 340 hours, and then it gets discovered that you also signed an internship contract for the same time, then you're the hero who can work 80 hours per week and also study in parallel. But hint, 99% of us are not such kinds of heroes. And please, if you have such significant commitments, make them explicit up front so that mentors can take it into consideration. And for example, for students in India, it's normal to have placement exams and a university in parallel with GSOC for some months. So if you have already have expectation of these periods of unavailability, it's better to include them into your proposal so that mentorship teams can plan for that. None of that is a showstopper, especially for short projects, so 170 hours. But it's better to know about that, so all sides are informed. Okay, any questions? Or if you want to discuss specifics of particular projects, we can dive in.
Actually, I do have a question. So I do not have actually any prior experience with open source. So would that be would that cause any hindrance to my proposal?
For proposal, there is a GSOC student guide which explains what needs to be in your proposal. And this guide is quite explicit. Let me show it to you. So, do you see my screen? So how to find it? Yeah, maybe it's something that needs to be linked more explicitly because they reworked the site. Now it's hard to find everything.
Actually, I do know where to find it. So
I'll just take a shortcut from my other organization. I believe it's here. Yeah. So this is the guide, which is somehow linked from the pages, and my takeaway is to actually have it linked from our landing page. But yeah, it provides a lot of information about what needs to be in the proposal, and there is a section called Elements of a Quality Proposal. So here you can find what needs to be there, and there are two important sections. So first of all, deliverables. So be explicit about what you are going to work on and what is going to be delivered as a result of your proposal. So it can be new code, new plugins, new integration services for Keptn, new documentation, whatever, but it has to be explicit because this is something that converts text and idea to measurable criteria which we will need. Another important thing to always keep in mind is benefits to the community. So when you have a project, so for some project ideas we have listed there is explicit benefit to the community, but still always think that if I make this proposal, how it helps Keptn end users, how it helps Keptn contributor community, especially if you want to come up with original project idea, which is totally welcome, but you also need to keep it in mind. So these are probably two main sections, and the rest just what is here. In Keptn, we don't have specific additional guidelines for this year. We don't have specific templates because this guide is quite self-sufficient, in my opinion. But yeah, what I mentioned before, that if you have some details about your availability, etc., it would be recommended to put it in the project proposal. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, it actually does answer my question.
Okay.
I also have one more question, and
Yeah.
that was that can you actually elaborate on the idea that improve GitHub integration in Keptn?
Okay, so maybe we discuss it a bit later. So I will answer one question in the chat, and then we can focus on this idea. So there was a question from Nishanta: how many applicants is Keptn taking this year? I don't have answer to that right now because how it happens once we have project proposals submitted, then they will be reviewed by the organization. So we, together with mentors, will review all the proposals and basically decide how many projects we would like to have and how many projects we can support by mentorship teams, etc. Then we submit two numbers to Google. One number is minimum number of projects we would like to get. Another one is maximum number of projects we would like to get. And then Google processes these requests from all the organizations and comes back with a number of projects we get. And then we do the allocation. So right now, we don't have exact number of how many applicants we are taking. It's not up to us to decide to some extent. But good news is that depending on the number of quality proposals, etc., we can justify high number when asking for slots from Google. At the same time, it's important to know that Keptn participates in GSOC first year, and it means that it's unlikely that there will be many project slots allocated. So usually for first year organizations, they allocate 2 or 3 slots, maybe sometimes more if we can prove that we have experienced mentorship team, etc. But usually the number is relatively low for the first year. So I wouldn't expect that we will have, let's say, 20 students working on Keptn this year. Not at all. We don't have so many mentors. We don't have capacity for that. So I would say that the expectation, the maximum would be maybe 5. And if we don't get enough slots from Google, we also have an opportunity to run community bridge projects. So in this case, you shouldn't be too concerned about the number of slots we are getting, because if you have a good proposal, if you have potential mentorship team, and if the only reason is not having enough slots from Google, it's the easiest possible situation, because we can run our LFX mentorship program. Getting budget for them is relatively easier. We can shake some trees and get money for that, and we can run a program. So right now, I would rather focus on just preparing good proposal, working with the mentorship teams, getting feedback, and if there is joint interest, we'll see how we can make this project happen. So yeah, Avzal said that one GSOC contributor participants per project. This is a general rule, but there are some exceptions. So in theory, if you have, let's say, 2 students, 2 contributors who are interested in a single project, let's say we have this case already in the documentation engine, it might be theoretically possible to have 2 students working on this project. So that means I still keep saying students for GSOC. I apologize for that. But to do that, these projects have to be independent. these projects, even if they pursue the same idea, they should be able to firstly be successful separately. They should be able, we should be able to evaluate them separately, and they shouldn't block each other, because every project may not happen, may not be successful due to any reason. But if you see that there are multiple students, contributors interested in the project idea, it's open source. This is why we recommend public discussion, etc. If you see that there is a kind of competition, you have two options. Firstly, compete. Secondly, you can collaborate, work with each other, find potential solution, and this is also how open source community works. So if you come up with potential plan how two projects could happen independently, how you could have separate deliverables, etc., then there might be two projects for one project idea. It's rare, but it happens. Okay. Does it make sense?
It does make sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're in this situation, better to start earlier, because it's not always trivial to come up with projects that would be independent enough. Potential mentors can help with some guidelines, but generally it's up to potential contributors to work with each other. And just showing ability to work with each other and finding a solution is already quite important step for having this proposal justified. Okay, so what else we have in the chat today? So there is ask for GitHub integrations, then Jenkins file runner project idea, and let's just dive a bit into project specific details.
Excuse me, I have another question. Can I ask that?
Okay.
If I do want to review my proposal, is there a certain procedure that I would need to follow? Or can I just contact it? No, if I want to review my proposal, can I just contact any of the mentors and ask them for a review? Or
my recommendation would be to put your proposal in a reviewable format in the chat associated with the project idea, because it would be the best way to facilitate more feedback. What is a reviewable format? For example, my recommendation would be to use Google Doc, where you allow public comments so that people can share feedback, etc., right in the proposal.
Sure thing. And this will be on the channel itself, right? Of whichever idea I was. Thank you.
So it's the best way, as we discussed before. If there is specific interest, we can organize a meeting to discuss a project idea, to discuss some proposals. But all of that happens on the case-by-case basis. So if there is enough interest, we can set up something. But we need to see that there is such an interest.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Okay. So do you see my screen? Conveniently enough, now GSOC points to this page. Okay, so here what we have a number of project ideas. So again, these are project ideas.
Can you make that a little bigger?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Is it better now?
Thank you.
Okay, so here, for example, we have the first question we got about GitHub integration in Keptn. So this is a project idea, and let's be honest, it's a wide project idea because it has a lot of topics and it's widely open-ended. So the problem array is that many projects use GitHub. And GitHub is used for multiple purposes. For example, there are some APIs which you can leverage to provide to improve better developer experience. So one of examples is in deployment environments. So for example, when Keptn does deployments, etc., you can propagate this information to deployment statuses so that you can see what's going on the GitHub side. Another example is GitHub checks. So, for example, here you have a number of checks, including some checks like Netlify deploys the preview environment and notifies you here so that you can easily evaluate this pull request. So all of that could be also added to Keptn so that you can invoke these notifications, statuses as a part of sequences, or maybe you could propagate all sequence stages as checks. It depends on how you wish. And it could be a good improvement for those who do development and who rely on Keptn, for example, to manage staging environments or to do quality gates as a part of your continuous integration flow, or to do continuous delivery and deployment after the pull requests are merged. In any case, you can get benefit from these integrations just by providing some data, etc. So this is one of items that could be done. Other items for integrations is, of course, actions. Because GitHub Actions is basically a pipeline engine, and you can invoke Keptn quality gates from GitHub Actions, for example, for your CI build. So one of examples here would be Keptn Core, because Keptn Core itself has continuous integration implemented as GitHub Actions. So you can see a bunch of various checks and pipelines here. And some of pipelines could also involve working with Keptn, invoking quality gates and retrieving results. So such integrations could be useful. Last but not least, there is one important thing about all these APIs. So checks API, deployment APIs, I've shown that to work properly, they need authentication with GitHub application. So instead of having users and token, you can register a GitHub application, let's say Keptn, that actually uses special APIs and gets access to these APIs on GitHub so that you get more benefits. To show you some examples of real how it was done, so Jenkins, so 2 years ago, 1 year ago, we had a project for GitHub checks. So basically, it's a project that again integrated Jenkins with all these GitHub checks, APIs, and there was a lot of changes done there. And it was a GSOC project by Keptn, and this project has been really successful, widely accepted by users. And it basically goes through various checks API and authentication support that actually makes it happen. So one of if you're interested more in some success stories, how it could be done, you can just go to Jenkins, and there you can find this project in archives. And so I believe it was 2021. Checks. No, it was 2020. Time flies. Yeah, GitHub's checks API. So it's just one of examples. So here you can basically go through stories, what was implemented, how it was implemented. Again, it's just an example of success story. It doesn't necessarily map to Keptn directly because Jenkins and Keptn are slightly different. But in principle, you can explore these areas. Also, there are some other opportunities you could consider. So, for example, as a part of Cap 60, we recently delivered support for OpenID. So maybe creating some proof of concept demonstrating how Keptn can integrate with GitHub OpenID, and maybe later with GitHub security model for authorization once Kep60 is delivered could be also an opportunity. So there are multiple integrations, and if you're a GitHub user, probably you can come up with even more ideas. And this is basically what is this project idea about. It doesn't set particular deliverable. It lists many options that could be done. And if you're interested in this area, maybe what you could do is explore development flow with GitHub Actions, see where you could see improvements for your developer experience with Keptn, and building your project proposal based on that. So it can be quite narrow idea compared to what I described. So if you want to deliver anything, it's probably a task for many senior engineers for several months. But taking one particular area that could be interesting for you is something you could start from.
Yeah, thanks for this detailed answer. And it actually answers all of my queries. So thank you.
I had a question, Oleg. Where does the various parts of GitHub integration sit in the Keptn workflow?
Oh, yeah, this is a good question because it depends. So let's take a look what we have. If we talk about, let's say, GitHub Actions, etc., maybe it's something that could be done as integration service or as documentation for webhooks. And if you want to integrate otherwise to have a GitHub action for Keptn, spoiler alert, we already have some, but it would be nice to productize them. Then it would be just a separate component that integrates GitHub action for Keptn, probably by integrating Keptn CLI, or maybe you talking to Keptn through REST APIs, but it would be a separate repository. GitHub App Authentication Service, most likely it would be integration as an integration service with Keptn. So basically having a service that wraps requests, etc., talks to Keptn core. Maybe it will require some changes in Keptn core to make it straightforward, but in this case, it would be rather integration service. Reporting application statuses to deployment API, etc. Again, it would be integration service or maybe some documentation for webhooks. But to make this possible, you will need to have GitHub App Authentication. So this is something that will need to do at least some kind of integration to make it possible.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's something for you to explore. And the good first step for this would be to just try out Keptn and GitHub and see what you would like to change. Also, there are some user requests. So for example, provide integration with GitHub Actions. It was created by Jürgen a while ago, but I think that it's still relevant. So if you see items like that, just comment and discuss in the Keptn Integrations channel, and we can see what exactly could be done there.
Thank you for answering my question.
Okay. Any questions on GitHub integrations, or should we move on? Yeah, there is a comment from Suresh about that it would be easy to understand the integration ideas if you study how Keptn works under the hood. So Keptn is event-driven orchestration engine. So if you study a bit Keptn, cloud events, how this thing integrate with each other, then it could be a good addition. And architecture-wise, yeah, hopefully we can decouple everything into separate services through integration APIs. But let's see. Okay, there was another question about executing pipeline with Keptn execution plane using Jenkins file runner. So I can briefly describe this idea. I guess I'm one of the potential mentors. So it's this idea, Jenkins Pipeline Executor Service. So how it works, you already saw a job executor service, right? This one. So basically, it allows to execute various kinds of tasks using job executor. So how it works, Keptn itself has a control plane that does all kinds of orchestration. But if needed, there is another execution plane which allows executing various heavier workloads. So for example, if you use JMeter integration service to run load tests, this execution plane can be used. Or another example, job executor service, which is basically an opportunity to run random tasks in random utility containers that can integrate various execution steps. So some examples of job executor service being used. So basically it's low-level extension point. But if you go to Keptn integrations, for example, like here, there is a recent integration added, for example, PowerShell. I believe Adam Gardner submitted it. And basically what it does, it allows to do PowerShell execution as a part of Keptn sequence. Basically, here you can see what happens. So it's a task that takes a PowerShell container and then just runs PowerShell with particular options. So here it prints hello world, but instead of that, it can be quite heavy. For example, running MS build or running build makefile, etc. So it can be a heavy workload. And it executes scripts. At the same time, executing scripts, it's fun, but at some point you might want to execute something more serious. And for that, for example, you might already have a Jenkins job. So for example, Jenkins Pipeline is, well, Jenkins is an automation server heavily used in CI/CD. And there might be pipeline jobs, for example, for building your projects, for doing static analysis, etc. So I'm just opening Jenkins Pipeline and just looking, for example, like that. So here's an example of Jenkins Pipeline where on agent we execute build using make, then run tests, run deployment, publish the reports. So this is basically a pipeline. It's similar to the Keptn sequence, but instead of being declarative, instead of being orchestration focused, it actually does a lot of execution steps and a lot of reporting. It can integrate with Keptn as well by reporting quality gates, etc. But this is a separate story. Right now, there are ways to actually trigger Jenkins execution from Keptn just by using REST API, by using webhooks. But it uses external Jenkins instance, which runs, which consumes resources. But there is another project in Jenkins called the Jenkins File Runner. Which basically allows to do, it's a portable engine that can execute Jenkins pipelines anywhere, basically as CLI. Or so whenever you have support for Docker or other container runtime, or whether you have Java, you can execute Jenkins pipelines in CLI. So here's just give happening, executing pipeline. And basically the idea for this project is that you can take this engine and use job executor service. So basically put this engine right inside job executor service so that you execute Jenkins pipelines inside Keptn execution plane as a single shot Jenkins pipeline execution. So this idea is easy, and actually you can do it by a few tweaks here, which is something I suggest to try. But then there are infinite opportunities for improving developer experience. So, for example, streaming some results back, streaming reports, returning unit test reports or static analysis data as quality gates, as SLI providers back to Keptn, etc., etc. So for this project, you could start from creating a simple POC, which is probably a few hours of work gluing things together. And then you can think about developer experience and how you could improve the things by providing better integration layer. Is anyone still following?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically Jenkins today is just an example of, let's say, command line executor. So Jenkins file runner is quite established as a tool right now. Obviously, we can talk about various things, how to pre-configure the images, etc. We can talk about that if you're interested. But the most straightforward example would be to just integrate bits with each other and see how it flies. And then you can iterate on that and maybe create something more exciting from user experience standpoint. Okay. Questions, comments? Looks like not. So, any other projects or questions we forgot to discuss today? No. Okay, then again, we have only 2 weeks left. If needed, we can organize more meetings. So tomorrow we have Keptn developer meeting where we can spend some time discussing JSOC as well. Next week we will have community meetings. But do not wait until these meetings. If you have any questions, ideas you would like to discuss, just drop them in the chat, and it's the best possible way. So, Brad, Mike, Suresh, would you like to add anything?
No, just thank you everyone for coming. It was really good to, everyone was asking some really good questions and we're really looking forward to spending time with you. And remember what I said, the only way to get involved is to get involved. So jump on Slack, say hello, and just get talking in Slack.
That's one.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that on a related note, any question you ask here or on Slack or anywhere else, you can search it publicly. It's a contribution to Keptn. People are going to have the same questions later on. Asking really good questions.
Yeah. Happy to help. Okay, then thanks everyone. So I will publish the recording soon. And I just realized that I still owe you a recording from the previous week because I wanted to copy edit it a bit and then forgot to click the publish button. So I will get the recording from the previous week published too. So yeah, thanks everyone and see you in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.